Rabbi Manis Friedman. Thank God it's Tuesday. Thank God you're with us, because I don't think there's a harder topic that we can discuss right now than the atrocities that are being done to children in our time. And I tried to speak about this topic before, and I felt like it was the wrong time, that people are not responding, not comprehending, don't want to talk about it, and not ready to talk about it. And now that this movie came out on 4th of July and it's being talked about widely, Sound of Freedom, it's about child sex trafficking, child labor. It has to do with horrible things that are being done to children in our times, and the fact that people still kind of say, oh, I don't want to go see this movie, I don't want to talk about it, I don't want to do. So we're kind of tolerating whatever is going on, which is incomprehensible, atrocious. It's just there's no adjective that I can use for what's happening. And the question, of course, is, how do we deal with it? We spoke during our last program that we're tolerant to insanity, which is around us, but this is way, way worse, and we're tolerant to it. So the question is, why, and what can we do? Can we do anything?
Can you tell me a little more about the movie? What does the movie show?
The movie,
is it a documentary?
It's not a documentary, but it's based on a true story. It's a Homeland Security undercover agent by the name of Tim Ballard, it's not based on him, but he's the main character. He has worked for Homeland Security for 12 years, and he's been mainly uncovering people that are pedophiles, that are, and he has statistics. I mean, I tried to look at statistics as far as child trafficking, child labor, and child organ harvesting is concerned. And the truth of the matter is, there are no real statistics out there. You get statistics between 10,000 and tens of millions a year. So realistically, I don't know what the real statistic is about any of this, but one child is way too many. So it's not even about the numbers, even though his numbers are over 6 million. And that number kind of also hits home because under 100 years ago, 6 million Jews were done away with in the most horrific way, and the world stayed quiet and tolerant to it. So I can't help but draw a parallel, even though I don't want to say this is worse. It's terrible, and we always ask the question, how come the world never did anything about Jews being killed for no reason? Why did the world stay quiet? Why no one did anything? And now I'm asking the same question, and I'm sure I'm not the only one who's asking the same question about the children. I mean, if we know these atrocities are being done to the children, where children are being sex trafficked, labor trafficked, used for organ harvesting or whatever, and we know it's happening, there are people that are talking about it. A lot of people are talking about these days. This is an undercover agent who's talking about it, who has seen all of this. And I don't think there's any person in the world who would lie about something like this, and yet the world is still about this. We're not getting up, all of us, like all of us, and knocking on doors and asking for all of this to come to an end, to stop, because I don't know. This is just my thoughts out loud to Rabbi Friedman.
So this guy works for Homeland Security, means he's talking about children who are crossing the border and being abused?
Yeah, his main job was to look for pedophiles who spread pornography, child pornography in the United States, who had access to the children from not, of course, just United States, but from around the world. And little children, we talk about 3 and 5 and 7, who were used as sex slaves. And he attests, he did a lot of interviews after the movie, before the movie came out and after the movie came out. And he spoke about the fact that he saw footage because he had to report it. He had to see all of this with his own eyes, and he had to report it to court. So this is out there. People know about it. People talk about it. But why is it still being like sort of hush-hush? Because this is something that should be the topic. It should take precedence over every evil that is happening out there, because this is the worst evil that could possibly happen.
You're right. Well, the first problem is that the average American is not affected by it. So it seems like a distant, irrelevant issue to our lives. God forbid if it starts happening in the United States itself to that degree. I'm sure there will be an outcry. The other thing is we don't know who to blame. Who do you scream to? Who's in charge of this? If you wanted to fix it, how would you? Just a lot of complaining in the atmosphere, in the mood of the country. But obviously, there needs to be a change in administration. The administration we have now is just way too permissive. It hasn't done anything moral so far. It has enforced no moral laws. It just increased indulgence and entitlement, and so naturally this is what it leads to. If everybody is entitled, so are the criminals. And there's no conscience. They don't even hide it. But you're right, there should be a huge outcry. So hopefully that movie will create another and another, and people will start becoming aware that this is an immediate problem, not some distant theoretical problem. And then I'm sure there'll be an outcry.
Rabbi Friedman, I have to say that one of the things that is spoken about by everybody who is involved in creating this movie is that all of these people, they have God in their lives. And this agent especially, he said that he was hired for this job because his boss said, you can handle it because you have God in your life. And all the actors and everybody who's involved, it seems like those are the people who are God-fearing, who are religious, and who are trying to get this message out there. They have everything on the line right now, and those are the people who are standing up for morality. So I don't know what that means either. I mean, I'm sure it means very important things, but it seems that everything we've spoke about up to now, that this is a war against God. This is supported by this particular occurrence as well, this particular fact as well.
So you're saying there aren't enough people who are involved and aware and speaking up. See, that's dangerous. If there's only a handful, they can be silenced. And I'm sure that there are those who are interested in silencing them. But once the numbers get out of control, then silencing anyone won't be effective, and the threat will be gone. So the sooner it becomes public knowledge, the better. And today we have the tools. You can educate the entire country in 10 minutes if you just get them to see and listen. So everybody in the media who is concerned should absolutely make it public. Make sure that everyone in the country knows that it's happening. That'll probably save a few lives of those who started this exposure, the expose.
It took them 5 years to bring this movie to life. The movie was created in 2019, and for 5 years it's been blocked. And not Netflix, not Prime, those are not the channels that are bringing this movie to life, but it is in all the movie theaters out there, and it is #1 box office hit at the moment. It is properly...
Really?
Yes. The people are embracing it, and it's incredible. I mean, I am really, really hopeful that this is the tipping point for humanity to totally... that this is the breaking point, that this is what will finally get people going in a different direction. However, the numbers, Rabbi Friedman, are staggering. I mean, if we'll go by this agent, I have nothing else to go by because everything is so, I don't know, the numbers, the statistics other than his, and he says that his statistics come from the Department of Labor and the UN. So let's go with his statistics. He says there are over 6 million slaves, either child labor or sex slaves in the world. And those statistics are horrific, mainly because if there are so many slaves, then that means there's a demand for it. So the question is, how evil is evil? How many people are affected by this evil, that there are so many people that are willing to use this to want this? It's I don't even know how to talk about it, to be honest.
And how quickly can that be turned around? Or are they all hopelessly deranged and evil and cannot be rehabilitated? It's a big question. Let's talk about it from a biblical perspective. We're going to be finishing the book of Bamidbar, the fourth book of the Torah. We're going to be reading the last chapters this Shabbos. The book of Bamidbar means in the desert. You basically have a theme there. There are years in which the Jews traveled and they committed every kind of crime and every kind of sin to test the waters, to see what exactly does it mean, God's commandments, God's mitzvahs, God's prohibitions. They tested everything. Like children who test all the rules you set up. So, for example, you have idolatry. They made a golden calf. You have the violation of Shabbos. Somebody publicly gathered wood on Shabbos. You have gossip. And in each of them, we discover two things. Number one, what are the consequences? And number two, that there is forgiveness for that too. So in the course of the 40 years, we tested out every kind of sin to see what will be the consequence and how will we be able to repent and fix it. Fundamental stuff, very basic. So there were sexual crimes, and there were the serious, heavy violations of idolatry and Shabbos violation. There was even somebody who cursed God. You go through the list of challenges where the Jews challenged God, which is pretty awesome, to see how serious, how damaging, how forgivable, so that by now we pretty much know everything. What's significant, or what's interesting, is there was never a crime against children. All the times that we tested God, it never involved children. Can't think of a single violation in the Torah where somebody was abusive of children.
Rabbi Friedman, can I ask in this particular time about, you're speaking about the Jewish people who have never done anything to children. However, Torah does speak about atrocities done to children. About 4,000 years ago, it speaks very clearly that Rivka, who was 3 years old, has not been touched, has not known a man. And it's very weird to read about the fact that a 3-year-old was never touched by a man, and about the fact that about 3,000...
And that she was the exception.
Yeah, exactly. So it's right there. And about adrenochrome, well, I think Pharaoh invented that one 3,600 years ago approximately. He was taking baths in children's blood. We know that fact from Torah as well. So there are things that we read in Torah about atrocities done to children, not by the Jewish people, but by others. So...
Yeah, there's no question that there were such things. But what I'm saying is, the Jews wanted to know, check, what are the consequences of the various sins? But they never questioned or needed to check what happens if you violate children. That was not necessary. It was like, that was out of the question, and there was no... So idolatry was being tested, Shabbos was being tested, honesty was being tested, illicit sex was being tested, but not children. That was beyond question and beyond doubt. So the horrors of what's going on is that ideally or properly, that should be the one area in which there is no license, and there is no, like, even the worst people who will violate every other commandment, this should not even be a question. So we have gone beyond reasonable sin, if you can call it that. This goes beyond not only morality, it goes beyond humanity. So it's not a question of religion, and it's not a question of piety or holiness. This is like cannibalism. It goes against the human condition, besides going against God's commandment. So, if there is no outcry to this, then there's very little hope for humanity. And that, of course, can't be. So there must be not only an outcry, but a strong reaction that quickly puts an end to this.
You think what is happening right now is enough to cause that, or is it still something that might, go away again and not be treated seriously and taken seriously?
Yeah. Well, if the movie is now very popular and people are seeing it, then there is hope. If it's not known, it's much more dangerous. So whatever we can do to make it known would be useful. So talking about it right now is very useful. It's very good. I hadn't heard about the movie. That's not good.
It just came out on July 4th, and it's called Sound of Freedom for 4th of July, the Day of Freedom. And they're doing a wonderful job marketing it, because at the end of the movie, you have the option to buy tickets forward and give them to people, which I think is a wonderful, wonderful movement. And there are a lot of corporate companies that are buying it for their employees. So it's definitely a movement, and it's extremely positive that something like this is happening, because like everything else, knowing that this evil exists, but not being able to talk about it and not being able to do anything about it, that's the crime of the century. That is truly the crime of the century. So,
and it's a little poetic justice in a sense. The media has been the tool for the most vile and the most evil of things. That the media is now the solution to the problem, because the more people who see the movie and the more people who talk about it, the better things will be. So the solution has to come from the same source that the problems came from. The media has to turn itself around and become the champion of the people, because for so many years it has been the corruption of the people.
Well, unfortunately, the mainstream media is against this movie. The media that has been causing all the problems all these years is still causing problems, or it's slowly dying, because I think it's discrediting itself, because realistically,
yes,
it's taking the same stand here as it's taking everywhere in everything that has been going on in the last couple of years. And but the borders, 85, again, according to the same agent, the same person who is in charge of this movement, let's say Tim Ballard, it's good to remember his name. He is the hero of now. And he is saying that 85,000 children have crossed borders and were placed with, they were unaccompanied minors who were placed with families that are not necessarily anybody they're related to. And all these 85,000 children in the last 2 years are definitely in danger. A lot of them have disappeared. And this is something that is happening right now in the United States. Another thing that he said, that the United States is the number one user of child pornography. So we think we live in this Puritan country that is terrific in many ways. But at the same time, this is what's happening right here at home. And it's not known to everybody that this is happening right here at home, unfortunately. And
yeah. So again, the good thing about the media is that it really can't be controlled. So if one news outlet won't show it, somebody else will. And like you say, the ones that used to be popular are losing their popularity, so people are going to the other sites. So this country really is a good country. It really is. And the goodness is real. That's what I mean to say. So that when exposed, there's going to be a backlash. There's going to be a strong reaction.
Rabbi Friedman, like the people out there, they don't want to talk about it. That does not make them bad people. That makes them very good human people who can't understand how something like this is even possible. And I think most of us were there a couple of years ago where we just couldn't believe that this is something that is happening in our time, in our days, in our life. And so people try still to push it away. However, my question is, what kind of evil is that some people can't even comprehend it, but others, what kind of evil is this? How is this possible that people can get to this point of I don't know if it's insanity. I don't know what to call this. I don't know. How can people even get to that level? Do we have any explanation about this in Torah?
Yeah, it's self-serving. It serves their purpose. They make a lot of money. They become powerful. And they don't see why they should have any limits. Whatever it takes for me to become richer and for me to become more powerful and be able to control more people, why shouldn't I do it? Why not? But that's what comes from a narcissistic mentality. And the country for the last couple of years has been extremely narcissistic. Indulgent, entitled, arrogant, self-centered. It was almost the philosophy of the country is put yourself first. Even people who meant it in a very innocent way, thinking that putting yourself first makes you a healthier human being. Now we see how horrible that idea is. Putting yourself first can end up justifying people's horrendous behavior as long as they're putting themselves first and it's serving their need or their appetite or their desires. So let's turn it around. The people who are doing this, when they ask themselves, am I terrible? Am I bad? I'm sure that they think to themselves, people always do what they believe is best for them. Everybody says, yeah, sure. Do what you feel like doing. Follow your bliss. Well, that's what I'm doing. So who says this is worse than people who eat too much? Or people who watch pornography because they want to, they enjoy it. So we create child pornography for those who enjoy that. So where is this holier than thou attitude and this hypocrisy? You can do what you enjoy, but if somebody else does what they enjoy, all of a sudden they're the bad guys. This is the mentality that is governing the West. If you put yourself first, then there's no limits. So they justify it by saying, we're doing what everybody does. People in business cheat because it makes them more money. They lie, they're greedy, they're competitive. They'll put the other guy out of business. Oh, that's okay. Well, we're doing the same thing. We're following our own instincts. We're doing what brings us success and what makes us more famous, more powerful, whatever it is. So we're not any worse. So what is the antidote? What we've been talking about for years now on your show. It's not about us, and it's not about success, and it's not about fulfilling all your desires. We don't even need to be alive at all, much less have desires that we have to fulfill. We are here to serve a divine purpose. But to do that, God gave us freedom of choice. So we can either serve a divine purpose, or we can end up being monsters. The only solution is to start educating children that it's not about us, and you're right, you didn't ask to be born, and you don't need to be born. You are here for a much bigger purpose than making the best of your life, which is a horrible concept. Those of us who are a little less narcissistic need to fight against this. But not just to stop trafficking. That's the tip of the iceberg. The underlying cause is this assumption that if I like it and it helps me and it serves me, then I do it. That's not sense. I do what I do because I want to do. Is that a philosophy? So, thank you for making me aware of this, and keep talking about it, raising the alarm, and we have to believe there is a native decency in Americans that is not going to tolerate this. I don't want to compare like you say, but let's not make a comparison. But why was the world silent when Jews were being murdered? Because for thousands of years, Jews were considered the bad guys by the religions of the world. So Christianity never tried to annihilate Jews, but they certainly reduced Jews to undesirables, so that when somebody came along and started to murder Jews, nobody objected, because Jews were already blacklisted and tainted and maligned and so on. That's not the same with children. You don't have millions of people who think children are the problem and they need to be solved. So even those who could tolerate Jews being murdered cannot see children being murdered. That goes beyond. Nobody ever made children into villains. So if we find out that children are being abused and enslaved and sold for their body parts, we're not going to tolerate it. In fact, even Germans would not tolerate death camps in Germany. As much as they hated Jews, they could not tolerate smoke coming out of a chimney in which Jews are being burnt. Those camps had to be in Poland for religious reasons. Poland was more tolerant because of the religious preparation. Thousands of years of making Jews the villain for religious purposes. So the combination of Nazism and anti-Semitism in Poland enabled death camps to exist. There's no such bias against children. So the tolerance is much lower. So I think as soon as the information gets out, there's gonna be a backlash.
I'm very hopeful for that, Rabbi Friedman. I hope that this is the precipice for the humanity. I hope this is the tipping point. I'm very, very hopeful.
I hope so too.
Rabbi Friedman, thank you so much. Thank you.
So when we publicize this, it's not to emphasize the horrors. It's to call out the decency in people. The decency in people will win in the end.
But that's one of my questions. What can the decent people do? There's so many of us, but what power do we have? How can we make this? How can we destroy this evil by being decent?
Well, I would suggest the first thing is, if the administration doesn't do anything about it, they have to be voted out of office. It is not forgivable.
The open borders is a free ticket to this atrocity, and nothing is being done about it.
That's part of the problem.
Yes. So, but we talk about it, but and everybody talks about it, but unfortunately, it still exists, and it doesn't look like it's going to be corrected anytime soon, until the new election, until there's going to be some sort of a change. Well, I'm very hopeful that we don't need to wait another 2 years to see changes, because every day
Right.
someone is getting hurt.
Right. So if the noise or the complaint is strong enough, then the present administration will want to rescue their positions and do something about it. That would be good too. I'm not particular about who does it. And even if they're doing it for ulterior motives because they want to stay in office, that's fine, as long as this evil is ended.
Rabbi Friedman, absolutely. I am so grateful to you for everything you're doing, for everything you're saying, because realistically, I don't think there's anything harder to talk about in our day and time than this topic. I mean, realistically, I'm hardly keeping it together. I'll be honest with you. I'm hardly keeping it together, not just during the show, but during every single day, because knowing that this is happening to somebody, and somebody who is so helpless and so innocent and so can't protect themselves. So this is very, very difficult. And I thank you for your time and for your wisdom, and for even, the ability to see even something good in what the hope for the good, not to see good in it, but the hope for the good, even here. So thank you so much for this.
Thank you very much for your service. You can never know how many lives you're saving.
We all are. Should we save him? Hopefully we'll save all the lives that need to be saving right now. This is insane.
Yeah.
So, thank you so much. Thank you. And hopefully we'll have positive topics to talk about in the near future. This is what we should all hope for, of course. Thank you so much. Thank you, Rabbi Friedman.
Amen.